We haven't done one of these for a while, obviously, but nonetheless, here we are. This week it's kind of a. I'm going to focus on something that kind of came to my mind when I was reading up about a couple of different films that were coming out. Well, I thought would be coming out in the cinema, but weren't. Which some of these are like films like there's a new one called Iceman, which is like got Michael Shannon in it, and it's a biopic, and it's Michael Shannon. He's an Academy Award-winning man, and it's got a relatively big budget, but it's gone.
Oh,
But they sent it to on demand in America instead.
oh, that's that Robert Kuklinski film, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there's that new Nick Cage film, which isn't like a schlock Nick Cage film. It's a solid. It's got a pretty big cast, but it's gone
Yeah.
on demand in America. It doesn't make much sense to me. Whereas you get, whereas kind of comes on to my other sort of point where you have when there's been so many different films that get released with massive budgets but stay in the cinema despite the fact that they easily know that because of how bad their opening weekend is, it doesn't make sense to keep releasing them in like 4 different screens in a cinema. With films like R.I.P.D., which is like the biggest flop of the year, and they knew this from the opening weekend. Like, it was clear. It sold literally barely any tickets in America on its opening weekend, but it still released it worldwide everywhere they could, which doesn't make much sense. And then they like shafted different films out of the screens. And it's just mind fucked me. So, what do you guys kind of think about this? Because it's always something it's always been there. Obviously, you're kind of used to it in a way, but it's still a fascinatingly strange thing that kind of happens with mainstream films.
You want to go first, Joel?
No, you can go. You can go.
Okay. Well, as for the whole kind of film thing where they don't have showing the films in the cinemas and whatnot, I don't. I think it's sort of like a business, like a regular shop or something. I mean, it's about whether you're going to make enough from it. I mean, if you can get in all the films which are going to make a bigger budget, I'm sorry, not make big budget, but make more money in the end. I mean, it's up to them, what they want to show, what's going to make more money for them, isn't it? So it's sort of like a regular business, like a shop where you like Marks and Spencers, for example, wouldn't have like some Poundland quality stuff, and unless it was going to sell well, it's I guess it's sort of the same principle, really. I don't know.
Well, I kind of I get what you mean too, but I just find it irritating how so many of these films have such huge budgets and don't make the money back. And they know they're not making the money back because of the opening weekend, because nearly all of your money that you make back is in your opening weekends. Almost guaranteed, and you can judge it from that. But then they continue to keep them in screens, which just... That's the only thing that really throws me. I understand the whole like business sort of thing, but if it fails like that, why not bring in some other films to be screened more if they're doing well?
Yeah.
A good example in it was something like with the World's End, when it was put in America. They didn't give it many screens in a lot of cinemas because they didn't think it was going to do well. But then it did make its money back in the American sort of like part of the release. But then they didn't give it more screens. They continue to give more screens to things like like R.I.P.D., which made like less than half its budget back, and that's after ending like completely every single like several screens, solid month and a half in the cinema, and it completely couldn't make it back. And the producers, like all their section of that studio, shut down. It completely went wrong.
Well, I guess it's sort of stubbornness in a way. I mean, the fact is, they think this film's got a big budget. It has potential to get there, get the views and get the money raking in. It just needs more time, maybe. That's probably just their attitude, I guess. I mean, it's also about making a name for it. I mean, the fact is, even if it doesn't make it from the cinema screens, it doesn't make enough views. Just having the name there, having it constantly there, having it in people's faces, will be enough to get them to buy the DVD or Blu-ray eventually, possibly.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there is a sort of idea on that, but at the same time, I was reading up something about how films now that some films that get released on demand, online, and everything else all at the same time do better there and work out a lot cheaper and more efficient than putting it into the cinema because it's more expensive and more likely to fail. So it's kind of wondering whether Hollywood's going to move meant more of their films where they're not sure about whether it's going to work onto that more. So maybe that's why we're seeing quite a few things that are like $20 million budgets are all going on to on demand and straight to DVD sort of thing.
Well, this is sort of like the whole cinema versus home argument, really, isn't it? Like, I mean, we go on for ages about how, like, the benefits of either one. I mean, the fact is, for me, cinema is just too expensive these days. I mean, like the price of food, drinks, even the cinema tickets itself is just ridiculous. I can understand why it's selling better on demand, because I mean, the fact is, I mean, I'll only go to the cinema occasionally if I've got other friends who want to see the film with me. Otherwise, there's rarely much reason to go apart from just to see it first.
Yeah, well, I think with films like The Lone Ranger and what was it, the rest in peace,
R.I.P.D. or
that's the one. The fact that they've got like mega budgets and they're not particularly doing well in cinemas might give Hollywood a bigger incentive to maybe try a bit harder with the films that they're going to distribute and put out into cinemas anyway. So even though they're keeping these films in and they know they're not making their money back, they might actually use their brains and realize that maybe people don't want to see these sort of films anymore. And audiences are a lot more intelligent than they like to think they are, and they don't just want dumbed down action flicks all the time.
Another one I'm looking at right now is After Earth, which was 183 million budget, and it only made about 130 million back.
Really, a Will Smith film?
Yeah,
I thought he was like the biggest star in Hollywood.
But he's not doing well anymore, and it was M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh, of course.
He can change anything. I swear that man's he made the happening. Anything is possible. But you can give this tremendous budget, and it can still fail at like the core elements and lose an audience. I don't know. And there are other films which get cinema releases that completely fail, and you kind of baffled as to why they got a cinema release when other films don't, such as like this new Percy Jackson film, which got it's like a 38 million sort of budget, and it made 14 million back, and that was it, and it was just out the cinema. It was in for they took it out because it failed that badly.
Well, that's just a ridiculous filmmaking process. The director should have known better. I mean, how much did the first one gross? Probably wasn't that much, was it?
No, it was even less.
Well, there you go. I mean, they should have not really taken the chances like that. That was just a stupid move on the director's part, really.
There's another one like it seems to just be a sort of regular pattern almost. You get several of these films. There's another one that's called The Mortal Instruments. It hasn't come to the UK yet, but so far it's made only 14 million back out of 60 million, and it just didn't get more than that.
Well, what's it called?
The Mortal Instruments, City of Bones or something. Okay. And it failed miserably in America. It's not even going to come to the UK now. It does seem to have that. It's where sometimes when you get its opening weekend, it will be so bad, but because the budget's not too large, I think they'll cut it from coming to other countries and not waste the money. I do see that seems to happen a lot, but when it gets into the tremendous large budgets, it doesn't matter. They will just not do it, which is insane, really. I don't know.
I think people some directors and filmmakers, some of them just don't really put themselves out there so much. They're just too scared to just waste more money on the film when it actually could help by having more trailers, more exposure out there. I mean, it's just like some video games, for example. I know it's different, slightly deviating, but like Grim Fandango, for example, one of my favorite games of all time. It was critically praised across the board, but it really never really broke even. The money they made was rubbish compared to how much they spent on making it. And I just feel like with all the fan base they've got, it could have been massive if they actually re-released it with an HD or whatever. If they actually had some trailers going for it, it would have actually been a massive hit. I just think people they just make the product, and then if it didn't make enough money from opening from the first few weeks, and they just they give up on it. They're just like, well, can't. Let's not bother releasing trailers because it's already doomed to fail. When really there's a lot of potential out there, and they just don't really tap into it by being too scared to waste more money on adverts and stuff.
That's true, but sometimes you can it's not very often, but you get shows like Firefly that were critically acclaimed, but no one watched. Well, once shows that film Office Space that I quite like by Mike Judge, they don't do well in the cinema, but they find life on DVD, and then they can gain sequels through that. But there's always a chance that films like this can continue, like the universes that these filmmakers have made can continue. But it always depends on DVD sales, and sometimes that is included into obviously that's included into the overall box office. But usually, yeah, if it doesn't really do well in cinema, you're basically fucked.
Yeah, but it's not too late, even once it's in the cinema. I mean, if I mean, we were arguing about why these films which are failing kept in cinema so long. But to be fair, I can sort of see why they do that. I mean, over time, I mean, some people won't be intending to see it, but if it's there long enough, if it's still in the cinema like like several weeks, a month or so, then people will start saying, well, I've seen this film popping up quite a lot. It's always seems to be there. I might as well finally give it a chance. It might take them weeks before they get around to seeing it, but eventually, some people will eventually go for it. I reckon.
Mm.
So I don't know. I guess I mean, people, it's just never too late. I mean, I think it's never too late to release a trailer, to release more footage, and just put it out there. I just don't think it's too late. As long as it's still in cinema, it's still available. I think people could make a lot more money if they just kept pushing it.
But then that's kind of unfair on like the small independent films that kind of want to release in cinemas, but they can't because this film that's been a critical flop is staying in
Oh
just
yeah,
for the hope that they
absolutely.
can get some money. It's not fair on them,
Yeah, but
really.
the whole business is unfair, I guess. Really,
Oh yeah, definitely.
I guess what are you gonna do?
Complain.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
There are other like strange things that kind of irritate you with this sort of system in a way. You can go to the cinema and there's like a week or two when one film could be on, um, and then it's out, but then you get something just ridiculous. It's clearly awful, like the One Direction film or whatever, which has gotten like a full release across worldwide or whatever, like across America and most of Europe. It's ridiculous.
yeah.
And you get so many other films which are just pushed to the side, nice and gently, out of the way. Um, it's mind-boggling. And then
It's a cruel industry, I guess.
yeah.
Carry
Well,
on, sorry.
yeah, go.
What?
Go
Carry
on,
on, I
Charlie.
said.
Oh, sorry, I got confused. Everyone spoke at once. Another like thing that just sort of popped up, literally just flashed up on my laptop. Then was apparently Riddick has just succeeded in America to get like 18 million in its opening weekend. So it's done nearly half of its budget in its opening weekend,
Fucking
Not
hell.
bad.
and that's a freaking that's not a film that's really aimed at a large audience. It's this new one's aimed more towards Pitch Black, sort of like smaller audience of the original, rather than Chronicles, which tried to make it a large sort of mainstream film, which kind of fits into this sort of mindset, I guess, where like a film like The Lone Ranger is the same sort of situation where you have this aim to sort of hit as much of an audience as possible, but having a tremendous budget doesn't really mean it's going to make a lot of money back. Like how it's only just gotten just under its budget back for like 250 million or something.
That's insane.
And it's a complete critical flop, and it was only managed to get its budget back by literally being shoved in every single screen it possibly could and squeezing it out to try and get people to see it.
Fucking hell.
Well, there's that. I don't really want to make this. I'm trying not to make this into a "this is the end versus the world's end" sort of debate here. But yeah, I've just looked at the world's end. 20 million budget, and it's made back 39 million at the box office. Okay, and about a month or so before this come out, there was that American Canadian film "This Is the End," which I didn't particularly like, but that's not really entirely the point. But that film come out and it did extremely well, had a bigger budget than The World's End, and made shitloads more money than The World's End did. And then obviously it stopped coming in cinemas. And about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, they re-released it so it can make even more money. And I don't see the point in a film that I don't see why they've just re-released a film that was only in the cinemas 2 months ago, back in the cinema, just for some more money. And then it makes me realise that smaller budgeted films like The World's End really don't get a chance in places like America, and that kind of upsets me. If you know what I mean, I don't see why it's getting re-released. Like Avatar, that was getting re-releases. The Avengers got re-releases in cinema just so they can make even more money. I don't think it's entirely fair. I think once it's had its run, it should stop and then put it out on DVD. I don't see why they need to put it out in the cinema again.
Yeah, but we don't have a say in this deal, though, do we? If they got the money to pay up the cinema, say, yeah, why don't you we'll make you more money as long as you make us more money. Why not? They're just going to go for it. Obviously, they're corrupt and whatnot. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's not fair.
It's not fair and it's not right, but it's just going to happen anyway.
And you get some things which are just sort of like kind of peculiar in a way. You get a film like that one, The Purge, that came out. It cost like it cost 3 million and it made 84 million worldwide.
Fucking hell! I've not even heard of it. I've not even heard of it. What
I've watched it. It's rubbish, but it's funny.
Yeah, it's laughably bad, and it's made 84 million. How the fuck? It's just fascinating.
Oh yeah, but
puzzling.
Wasn't it similar with Blair Witch Project? Sorry, slightly deviating, but Blair Witch Project, that was like a really low budget, wasn't it? Not practically non-existent, wasn't it?
But they it is usually marketing. It's usually a gimmicky thing. Obviously, a lot of audiences, they don't really like things that are different. So if you can market something that has the same, generic formula, people are more likely going to see it rather than, marketing something like, I don't know, this new Nicolas Cage film. Well, I don't know why that hasn't done really well, but say something like Only God Forgives, or regardless of what people think of the film, that isn't going to get a lot of marketing because it's an obscure film. But I think they should at least give it a try. But whereas something like, the Purge film, if you put on the trailers from the creators of Insidious and Sinister, of course people are going to see it regardless of what the budget is, because if they know in their minds it's going to be like these, generic jump out your seat horror films without any real substance to it, it's going to be seen.
Yeah, true say. Same with the music industry, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Play some generic tunes, melodies you actually heard before, just straight up rip-offs, and people are going to buy it, basically.
Yeah. It's all about marketing and the way it's marketed. So, like we've been talking about, a film like Only God Forgives or The Iceman, they're a lot more, I don't know, edgier, and that's going to scare off audiences, or they're afraid that that's going to scare off audiences. So why would they even, attempt to give that a full-on release? They'll just put it on video on demand. Whereas something like The Purge, which is a great thing, that $3 million film has made, so much, but the fact that it's nothing really exciting or new, I guess it's a subjective opinion, but of course, like, that's going to get marketed a lot better. And then films of substance aren't really getting out there as much. Yeah.
Sad industry time we live in.
Especially The World's End, that really pisses me off. Really.
Was it 19 million like grossed or something? No, well, 19 million.
Yeah, 19 million they grossed. It was made for 20. I mean, they made it back, but it's not great money. That to me, I think Americans will probably think that's a flop because it's only made like 20 million more than it was to cost. Like it cost. That's not very good.
It's a lot of money, but for the film industry, it's not. We're not talking about big figures here. That's very basically just practically bare minimum.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, especially I think Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, had smaller budgets, and I think they did better in America. So, The World's End hasn't done too well, I don't think.
I think it was kind of strange with the releasing of that film more than anything. It was because it was released here first, got online in no time, was on like several websites like Hulu and things like that in America, so they could watch it there. They could watch it online and pay as well, and then it went into cinema. It was like done backwards there. It didn't make much sense. You could literally see it everywhere possible before the cinema.
Maybe
Yeah,
there's
and
a better. Sorry, carry on.
I don't think it's better. I think it's a lot more exciting if you've got some marketing behind it to say that something like this is in theaters instead of just a video on demand thing. Because I don't know, to audiences, they might think that a film going straight to video on demand shows that, oh well, it's obviously not excited enough for the cinema. Why should I bother
Yeah,
seeing it online?
Mm.
So that might have made it bad. Especially, well, maybe that obviously This Is the End is a similar sort of film. Um, they're thinking, oh, This Is the End. It's an American film. I know all the stars, and then they see something called The World's End. They might be like, well, it's probably something similar. I don't really know the actors. Why should I bother? Especially since This Is the End is getting a re-release. Oh, I could see that again instead of something new.
yeah. It's a strange thing, it is. But it just kind of got into my head about this, because the figures more than anything after a summer are always fascinating, and it literally is like a split middle on what fails and what succeeds in American cinemas, and some of them aren't even one of them particularly is kind of strange. It's called The Conjuring, which did really well, got critically very well, and then made 200 million plus because it cost 220 million and made 220 worldwide, which is insane. And it wasn't a Hollywood company corporation or anything, which it's kind of amazing how that happened in a way. It wasn't
But the
directly a
marketing,
studio film. Yeah, the marketing was pretty much the entire budget.
again, because this company or something like that, or these producers, they keep churning out these horror films. The Conjuring is also from the people that's done Insidious and Sinister and The Purge,
Yeah,
and they're making 2 to 3 horror films a year. So you get a new film that does really well, The Purge. Then The Conjuring comes out from the same people. They're going to go, oh, people of The Purge, because they know that makes money. So more people are going to make that. So in the marketing, they're just referencing back to other films. Again,
yeah.
Insidious 2 as well. So it's the third film from this company that's come out in 1 year.
What, Insidious 2?
Insidious 2, yeah, I think it's out next week.
Oh man, is there
You
gonna be
have
like
Yeah.
tiptoeing
Tiny
into tulips
Tim.
again?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tiny Tim.
And it's fascinating because The Purge is obviously very lazily put together. Insidious 2 is probably going to be the same. Whereas The Conjuring they put a lot of effort in. It's like they're kind of doing it in a way of we'll have one good, but the others who cares? They can be our way of getting the audience in. I'm like, what? I
But yeah,
don't
it's
know.
the audience mentality because they know what they're going to get with these films. I don't particularly think they're very good because these films are all about jump scares and loud noises, and audience will sit down and they feel like, oh, this is what scary literally is, and it's not. It's just it's a bit of a rush. But these, I don't really particularly think these horror films have any real substance to them, and certain horror audiences nowadays don't really find that, don't really want that in horror anymore. I think they're so used to bang, crash, wallop, and that's all they want. So of course they're going to market these films like that, and they're going to keep churning them out like this. At least they're small budgeted or they're independent companies. Like I don't particularly like the films, but if they're making money and they're smaller companies, good on them. But maybe
I don't
make
mind.
something of worth.
I don't really mind jump scares, but it's so forgettable. Like if you watch a film like The Exorcist, some of the imagery in that will stay with you for ages. Whereas
That's the
when you
point,
have
yeah.
when you have a jump scare film, literally, what you're gonna remember what happened from that jump. Like when you think about it a week later, you'll be like, oh yeah, something made me jump. I can't remember what it was. It's just like it's over in 5 seconds. It's like, well, what was that about? This no substance. It's just a fucking a decades old trick which just doesn't work really. Well, it works,
Yeah,
but
most horror films use them, but other horror films, don't just rely on that.
yeah,
And
that's what I
again, like
mean. I
you said,
mean,
they rely on scary imagery that will stick with you, like something like Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Whereas what you've seen Insidious, haven't you, Steve?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Apart from that one funny Tiny Tim scene that you showed me, and
Yeah.
maybe some jump scares, can you really remember what happened?
Actually, you know what? For a horror films of the modern day, that was actually probably one of the best I've seen. I mean, I thought it was pretty shit, but it was not as bad as others I've seen. But I mean, it had basically, I remember it involving a kid who basically something about a lucid dream where he's stuck in some sort of dream world type thing, and basically the parents concerned, and in the end they try and find a way to get him out of it or whatever. That's basically all I can remember. It was like the most basic of details, but it was okay for an idea. but it was pretty shit anyway.
Yeah, see,
It's like
there's
Paranormal
something.
Activity. That is just horribly forgettable. I mean, what can I remember from Paranormal Activity? I remember things falling out of the cupboard and smashing to the floor. I mean, who gives a shit?
Again, that's what audiences like, though. They don't. They think that a jump scare means a film is scary when that
No.
isn't really what horror is.
Yeah, in fact,
So
if it's just relying on jump scares, you're not going to be scared. By the time you go home that night and you go to bed, you're just going to forget about it because what do you remember what was scary? Something which was there for 5 seconds, or whatever. You're not going to remember anything that was really shocking, which will stay with you because that
Yeah.
wouldn't be over in 5 seconds or 2 seconds. That would be
so
staying there.
we can't really complain too much about the marketing. Then obviously it's just stupid. I think what we're on Paranormal Activity 6 now. I think by this
6?
year the six.
How?
Yeah, something
What?
6 or 5's coming out this year, and then
Uh,
I read up that they're going to do a spin-off series set in Spain or something, which is kind of silly. But obviously they're partly to blame because they're churning these sequels out. But really, it's the audiences. If the audiences like it, there's not much that we can do about it. If that's the future for what people want to see in horror films, obviously we're going to be snobby and say, well, that's rubbish. It's supply and demand. So they want more, they're going to get more. Everyone's going to make money. They're going to get their 82 minutes of getting made jump and then seeing over long footage of two people in bed and then the covers get moved. It's That's what they want. That's what they're going to get. I don't particularly like it, but you
Mm.
know.
yeah, well, following on from this lovely point on flogging the dead horse of a series of films or making spin-offs, what was it? 2 days ago? No, yesterday. Yesterday morning, they Warner Brothers came out, or a studio which people were kind of wondering what they were going to do because their main sort of approach for the last like 12 years, the people in charge have changed hands since then, since prior to the 12 years, because those 12 years were basically make a Harry Potter film, release it, make money, cover the whole year's. You're solid, the studio won't go under. But then it ended, and they literally went shit, tried to churn out whatever they possibly could to make money with as many stars as they can. Doesn't quite succeed, but then they managed to pay an author to make a script. So now she's making a spin-off script for some reason, and it's gonna be another, probably span off into another couple of sequels and prequels to make Warner Brothers money. So effectively, she's just openly, as the author of the books or whatever, has said, yes, I'll make some more.
I'll sell out.
Basically, it does feel like she's decided to do that. I literally know nothing about the books, so don't ask me about that. But in terms of ideas and like the idea of doing spin-offs and churning this sort of thing out, it's obviously been there in America for God knows how long. Everyone's had 1,000 spin-offs. But it's something that's kind of fascinating as well and kind of fits into what we were talking about, how the lack of imagination on what to do next in trying to stick to your guns and what the audience wants or knows, never trying to actually branch out.
Audiences don't like things that are different.
Yeah, it's just like, we can't make some more sequels, we'll do something slightly different. Spin-offs! So they'll churn out some spin-offs. Obviously, in some cases, they can lead to good things, in others they can just be irritating. Well, for some, and others are just going to stare wide-eyed. Another one that came up about 5 hours ago was when they make those new Star Wars films, they're going to make spin-off ones to focus on certain characters so they can
that
make more
pisses me off.
money. They're going to do them for extra ones, so they're going to have several, constant churning them out. Maybe change actors if they need to, anything to keep the money going. But that's basically Disney's plan, whereas Warner Brothers doesn't have a plan. They just want more Harry Potter. Yes.
Well, I'll get to Star Wars later, but the thing with the Harry Potter films, again, this is a subjective point, but these Harry Potter films, I got bored with them by, I don't know, the third or fourth one. And obviously, you're going to have, like, hardcore fans going to see it. But I think this is a spin-off to just about wizarding worlds and shit. Like
Yeah, I know.
so I'm what about how fucking a old wizard makes a potion? I don't know what they're gonna do with it. You don't really have
Yeah, it's
like
really vague.
I can't see an equilibrium in a story
Yeah,
about
it's just gonna be probably not gonna succeed at all.
But she did make some extra books though, based upon the world, though, didn't she, J.K. Rowling? I never
That's
read
what I
them.
mean. But I think there are just like expanded. I think it's like tokens to Silmarillion. I just think it's lore. I don't think it has a proper narrative.
Yeah, I've not read them myself, but yeah, it sounds like just pretty much just like immersion into the world, just some bits of details and extra
Yeah.
elaborating and stuff.
So it kind of puzzles how that's gonna turn into a script.
Yeah, I've really no idea, to be honest. I mean, obviously it sounds like they're milking it, but I can't really blame them, to be honest. I mean, if they can make money out of it, why not?
That's exactly the point with Star Wars. Like you're getting three new films that carry on from the story, or the story that everyone knows of Star Wars, and then they're making a spin-off Boba Fett film. Apparently, they're trying to get a Yoda film going,
And a Han Solo one possible.
and a Han Solo one, like so origin stories. So they're trying to do like a Marvel thing going, and I really angers me because there's no point. There really isn't a point. It's just like people will go, oh look, it's Star Wars. Hands over the money. They know the brand name, so they're going to give over the money regardless if the idea is stupid. They don't like anything different, so they're going to go with what they know, and it's very frustrating. Very frustrating, actually. I
I
see the
don't
point
see
of
what.
maybe
Sorry.
three more like films that carry on from the story, but having a spin-off Yoda film or a spin-off Boba Fett film, and blah 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 Han Solo film with just these singular characters and maybe having a cameo here or there from other characters, it's just really gimmicky and stupid to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think they could, like, especially with Warner Brothers, who are, well-known like company who also publish video games. They instead of doing fucking films, they should just do video games. To be honest, for the Harry
Exactly,
Potter
I have no
universe,
problem with that.
if you want to
That's a good
elaborate the
idea.
world, that'd be perfect. Especially for like a massive multiplayer online game, you don't need a massive solid narrative. You can have loads of small narratives, and that would work
Yeah.
perfectly as a video game.
I find spin-offs in video games are very, much more logical in a way. They actually fit in quite easily because you can
Yeah,
design them to work because it's an improvement on what you did before. It's physically going to change in
exactly.
terms of what you're getting as a game. It can really change. Whereas the film, well, we got to keep a certain formula and do it, and then just churn it out and get it out there. Which
And films are. Sorry, carry on.
which with games I've noticed, even like the most, even a lot of things that they get once they hit reviews, it's very rare they're bullshit. It, it will put fans off pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's a cheap film is almost like the cheap thing that they can be completely lazy with and still churn it out, whereas a game is much more effort goes into it in a way. It takes a lot longer.
Certainly. However, like people have been because we've not had a decent Harry Potter game since like Chamber of Secrets. Prisoner of Azkaban was okay, but like after that it just went downhill. And literally, fans have been demanding it for a while, especially for a massive multiplayer online Harry Potter game. They've been demanding it
Yeah,
massively,
it would work easily without
especially
any
for a
trouble.
massive multiplayer. Imagine that all of Hogwarts, maybe all of the Wizarding Worlds, just
It
bloody
would
exploring all that stuff.
completely work, and they would
I'd
get
love that.
masses of money out of it. They'd churn
Exactly.
their money out.
And as I said, like I mean, it's not like a film where you need a linear narrative. You need, well, maybe not linear, but you need a pretty solid narrative. But with a game, you can have tiny little narratives, little small, what do you call them, vignettes or whatever the expression is. Just have small little things going on and just little sub quests, and people would love it.
Well,
Mm.
onwards from the spin-off stuff, we have other spin-offs which I'm not that knowledgeable on, which is the announced Breaking Bad spin-off, which you two can talk about, which I can't because I don't watch the show.
You don't?
No.
Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul.
That's what the show's called apparently, which I quite like.
So what?
Don't drink and drive.
Go for it. What do you think on this?
Go on, Steve.
Okay,
Kick us off.
at first, I didn't actually like Saul as a character that much. When I first episode with him, after that he grew on me so much. Like because he's really the comic relief of the whole thing. I mean, it's such a dark series, but he really adds a lot of light and a lot of comedy to it. and he's just such an interesting character. You know, every line he says is just so well written. It's hilarious. He's just got such a good charisma as a character. So I'm really excited to see how that will turn out. You know, I can't guarantee it will be great or anything, but I'm really looking forward to it regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same. I mean, at the moment, obviously in the more recent episodes, Saul's like become less of a a comedic character, and he's getting in the thick of all the violence and horror
yeah,
and shit like that. But apparently this is a prequel, so maybe, for all we know, he could die at the end of the Breaking Bad series. I don't know. But I think it's really interesting. If you've got shows like, I don't know, Law and Order and all these, like, churned out, shows about cops and lawyers and shit like that. I think it's really refreshing to see a show about a slimy dude that pretends he's Jewish to get more clients and so he can help out and get people out of prison, like the most vile, disgusting, fucking brutal people, and get
yeah,
them out of a prison. I think that would be hilarious. I think that's a
yeah,
really interesting premise for a show. And you only
yeah.
see snippets of that here and there with Saul with other people, and it's primarily with Walter and Jesse and stuff like that. But seeing all the different scumbags that will come to him, I think that'll be really good.
Yeah, definitely, and it's the way it's written. I mean, at least in Breaking Bad, it's so clever. Like the way he knows his way around the law, he knows all the loopholes, and it's gonna be so compelling to see that put in like a sort of side series thing. You know, just to see how he can handle different situations, try and find his way through around the law and stuff. And because and like you said, he's working with all these really vile, weird people. You know, it's going to be interesting to see him put in these weird situations and stuff. It's going to be great.
That's another question, actually. When was the last time you went to see a film in the cinema, or any, or even a DVD, and it came up with like Sony as its owner or whatever? It seems to be less and less regularly. They're actually decreasing their film area in a way. They're moving because they own AMC, and they're pushing money to AMC as much as they can, which has worked because of Breaking Bad. Do you think like some companies are moving away from film to like big conglomerates actually to do
Oh, I
things like
think
this?
yeah, television's definitely taken over. I
Yeah,
think you hear more people talking about The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones
yeah,
or
and
Breaking Bad.
people that outside of like doing film studies like we do. Outside that, you hear more people talking about television than you do about films
yeah,
all the time.
it's insane. It's TV and games.
Mm.
Every like film is pretty much non-relevant. It's just let's kill 2 hours. We're outside, you know.
Yeah, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Or
I mean, things it's
Resident
always been
Evil
that way anyway.
episodes of Breaking Bad. Well, fuck it. Let's go on to let's see what's on fucking uTorrent or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
You know, it does seem that because Sony particularly, I don't know. Maybe it's just a wild guess. I haven't looked this up, but it does feel like they're moving more towards TV more than the other like big corporations. They seem to be the one that's saying yes, let's go for it. Because obviously TV in America, until like things like Breaking Bad and whatnot, and Mad Men and all that, HBO was literally it in America. Like there was a few other stations that had some things that could compare, but not really. They pretty much owned their own thing, and because they came from TV, whereas AMC's come straight from film money, obviously from Sony. It's sort of strange coming from a different way, and they've overtaken HBO's shows completely. Because Walking Dead and Breaking Bad are like far, other than Game of Thrones, like there's nothing talked about more than those two shows. It's fascinating.
Well, that's the other interesting thing at the moment is I don't know, Charlie will probably know, Netflix original series.
Yeah,
So Netflix obviously it's just an
original
online
series like
streaming device.
One of them, like my mate Nick got me to watch. Some of it was freaking an adaptation of House of Cards, the original
Yeah,
BBC series.
Kevin Spacey.
Yeah, and I watched a couple of episodes, and it's fucking good. And that was released straight through Netflix, and is doing pretty solidly, no problem.
So yeah, I really think that the way television is going at the moment, I think people are kind of getting bored of films like The Lone Ranger and shit like that, and they're just turning towards television more. You got Netflix original series, you got the stuff on television at the moment, and you've got more stuff coming out on Netflix. I think That new Ricky Gervais show, I forgot what it's called. Do you know what's that new Ricky Gervais show called,
Can't
Steve?
remember the name.
I don't know. What one?
Well, the one with Cole Pilkington.
No idea.
Derek.
Oh,
That's
Derek. Yeah, yeah.
Derek. That's we got that on television here a few months back, but it's only just got to America and it's gone straight through Netflix online streaming, and apparently the views are like insane, like everyone's watching this and stuff like that. So
Because Netflix is actually fascinating because it seems it's more direct.
Yeah.
Because it's the company that won out of the several companies that wanted to get control of this sort of idea in America, and it got there. It won. So now it's able to just completely own the market. Which is great because now it owns the market, it's able to become quite big, whereas Hollywood owns the cinema market in America. Because AMC, actually in America, the idea of AMC was cinemas, whereas cinema chains. So Breaking Bad's funded by the, might depress you, but by the cinemas to get all of the films. So some of them are crap. So some of the money is a bit dirty, but it's because a lot of the cinemas in America are AMC cinema.
is it me or are you breaking up a bit?
I don't know. It might be your headphone or something. I don't know.
No, you're not.
Because you guys are all clear for me. It's quite fascinating, really, and it does seem to be that way. And even a lot of the films that do really well are treated almost entirely, like in the last couple of years, are treated like TV series in a way. Like the freaking Fast and Furious 6 thing. It's that cast again. Let's go see it. Because it's the
Yeah.
people you saw before. Fuck, and they'll come back for number 7, no problem. The audience will be there. And you can just keep doing that with the same sort of cast. If you have and what they're doing, obviously, with all the Marvel comic book films and whatnot, and able to
That's a
do
good
that.
point, actually. Yeah.
And that sort of mentality came weirdly, almost completely from comic books.
Yeah, it's the comic book ideology that
Like formula, which is genius because it's been around for God knows how long. We need another character in this. We need to keep this story going constantly, so that it's never fully resolve things. And now they're doing that, and that's what started happening in drama in America. Because they did that in comedy, obviously, nothing was resolved. But then it was, let's try and creep in the idea into drama, because they didn't do that in America. It was very much, this is what we're going to do. The same in Britain, which was kind of like that for a long time. Everything was a complete sort of episode. It could just end, no problem. Nothing would continue on. It was very rare. Very few things did. So everything kind of has that same sort of way of doing it, and all trying to be sort of comic book like, I guess. And everyone try and make a spin-off show, and everyone has a different thing appear. And you have the same over here with Doctor Who and shit. Like, when that was doing well, they made a freaking spin-off show with Torchwood, and then they made a spin-off show with Sarah Jane. They just churned them out because it was working. To bring different characters back and have a nice ensemble cast.
Yeah.
So I guess that'll be happening more with film, and the same with TV.
Well, especially since films are getting their own spin-off television series now. So the Avengers or Shield rather, that's getting its own television series. But Joss Whedon's been doing that for ages anyway. He had a TV series that went into a film, and a TV series that spun off into another TV series. Again, like you were saying earlier, so you got Buffy introduce Angel, and then Angel gets his own show. I mean, it's never ending. But it holds audiences in because most of the time with comic books and television shows, and maybe these long range of sequels that are coming out nowadays, you can see a continuing story. These people know these characters, and they
it's basically
get something with them.
Because as well as obviously the idea of the comic books sort of thing that we mentioned, it was around for a long time as soaps. I hate soaps. I hate watching them. They're shit. Soap opera, whatever the bullshit. It's the same, familiarity, which worked with them for a long time, but they didn't use it elsewhere. They just, that's like whatever. But now they put it into drama, but put a lot of good writing in there, and good characters, and a good story, and then suddenly it's got the critical acclaim, the real fan following, and it doesn't have to go on forever. They can make something else.
Yeah.
It's like it's sort of a thing I used to say a while ago was this is the 5-season sort of approach of America. If it goes past 5 seasons, it's probably going to have a crap ending. Like,
US Office.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. Most things have the.
Well, to be fair, if Breaking Bad had 2 more seasons to go, I wouldn't be too upset.
Oh yeah, you still watch it happily.
Yeah.
That's kind of why the spin-off thing is working. But most things, when they hit 5th season, they end, which was kind of a good example. Was The Wire that had 5 seasons, and all 5 seasons were completely loved, and they said that's it, complete package, and they kind of used that formula from then onwards. I don't know.
Except with Dexter, I think that's on 8 or 9 at the moment.
No, that one's treating itself more like freaking NCIS or whatever that goes on for free.
Oh, right.
It's it walks that thin line between both types of programming, sort of like 24, which never seemed to end, but then finally did. You know.
Oh, well, we'll see. I'm not much of a Walking Dead guy, but it'll be interesting to see where that goes because the amount of issues that are out.
Oh yeah, that's a very long comic book, but talking to people who have read it, it does feel like that it won't sustain as a TV show after a couple. It'll probably have a few more seasons and then it will drag out. It will stop because of the way the comic book goes. It doesn't really stay as that sort of way that you could do it unless they really went off in their own direction. It wouldn't be able to have many more seasons past 5 because the 4th one's pretty solid. Like there's a lot of shit that's apparently going to happen, and then the 5th one they got a lot of material. Then after then it's kind of it changes quite drastically apparently, so it might end on TV because drastic change in TV shows usually end in complete failure. Same with film. Like a film series, if it changed too drastically or went to a more ambitious sort of direction, it usually ends. Usually. Or it gets taken over and then brought back to the way it was originally. You see that with a lot of like slasher sequels. Like if one's slightly different, well, let's go back, people. Or even freaking cartoons like fucking anime like in the fucking 2000s. God knows how this is an example in my head, but it's because I'm an anime nerd. It was fucking season 1 and 2 Digimon, same type of thing, exact same system, no change. Season 3, completely different. Holy shit! Season 4, a complete carbon copy of the first. They retreat back to the start, sort of thing. That's the idea, I guess. But hey, we can't predict everything and guess how things are gonna go.
No, well,
It's just
I guess
to think about, I guess. Sorry.
I guess for films like that is true. Like with the Halloween film series, the first 2 were about Michael Myers. The third one was completely different. It was about masks that kill people. You put on a mask, you die. It's a bit weird, but I liked how weird it was. Obviously, that didn't get a good response, and then the 8 sequels after that were about Michael Myers again. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You can get some good stuff. I mean, like the Evil Dead film series. Sorry for bringing it up. I'm a fan, but each film is very fucking different. Like they get weirder and weirder and different as they go along. And that's still, I guess that's a cult film series really, so that's more understandable. But it didn't seem to lose audiences as much when the changes happened with that. I guess it depends on more if it's more commercial than something else, I guess.
Any final things to say before I wrap it up for the day? Because I think we're running out of words.
Oh yeah, you sort of touched upon like the whole idea of sort of TV series taking over for films, and I just wanted to say that I can sort of see why that's happening. I mean, when I was watching Breaking Bad, just from the pilot alone, I was like, this is just got so much in it. It's got everything going on. You in that episode alone, you learn about the guy's family life, you learn about his background, you learn about all this sort of stuff that's going on, and you also see how things progress. You already see him in his first venture to cook meth and all that stuff. You're exposed to all this stuff within about 40 minutes, and it's just like, how come it got all this in there without feeling rushed, without feeling too slow, without feeling it just had so much in it, and it just felt like it just went right by really well. And so it's like, why would you need films when you can get this much quality in such a much shorter span of time and much easier to consume sort of space of time?
That's true. I mean, to be fair, Breaking Bad, what this second half of season 5, I had to wait a whole fucking year for it to come. But season 5 as a whole is probably some of the best stuff I've seen all year in terms of media. Like, it shits on films.
Yeah,
The only the
big
only
time.
the only things that I can say can compete with it, and I'm definitely in a minority with Only God Forgives, but I'll say that, and The World's End are pretty much the only two things that have competed with Breaking Bad for me. I've enjoyed other films, but really, like, the amount of, drama and characterization, I'm not just saying, yeah, it has had 5 seasons, but in one episode alone, that, might deviate a bit off from the storyline a bit, you have the odd episode that's kind of its own thing. It's so much more interesting than everything else that's coming out in the cinema at the moment.
Big time, yeah, definitely. I mean, just
Especially-
an episode alone, even if you wait a whole week for it, like an episode alone is just enough to satisfy you. It's just, I mean, you still want more, but it's just so pleasing just to watch a single episode. It's got
Exactly.
so much to it.
And you don't need to be in a massive cinema in a dark room to enjoy it as much. It's sitting down watching it on a PSP or something is just as like entertaining as seeing, I don't know, the new Wolverine film.
Yeah, and it's for free as well.
Yeah.
I
Well,
well,
Netflix, I pay.
yeah, he has to pay. Coming off of that,
Scum.
I remember someone mentioning something. It might have been someone smart. I don't know. And they said something about how TV
Probably wasn't us
nowadays,
then.
yeah, TV nowadays is kind of like TV drama, like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones and Mad Men and all that. It's feeling more like, that period of New Hollywood when they had money, but it wasn't a tremendous amount of money, so they made more character films,
Oh yeah.
character pieces. It feels more like that. They have a big budget, but they still have to stick to this sort of bounds. A couple of years ago, when they made the first season of the show called Heroes, back fucking way back, I remember I don't know, I was young in college and I was doing research and shit. Researched into it and how when you work for they say, okay, you're going to make this show. You have this certain area of land you must make it in, and it's the same with The Walking Dead. Has a certain like section of Georgia, like it has this like a good corner of the state. Make everything in that state. You can't go anywhere else. These are your parameters because this is what we've had to sign with the state. With Heroes, they had a certain section in Los Angeles. If they had to film in New York, they had to do it in Los Angeles. Doctor Who has to all be in Wales, except for certain moments they might let them go to London. Other than that, it's almost completely there. Only in the last season, because they've made a deal with BBC, with AMC in America, they've come to America for a few shots, for a couple of episodes, but they can only do a certain quota, so they can only do 2 or 3. Everything else has to be back in Wales. It seems to be that, because they have these set parameters, which large big budget Hollywood films in the last, in a good sort of period from like the 80s to the 90s and onwards to now, have no parameters. They can we need to go to Japan and blow some shit up. Let's fucking go. Let's give the money and do it. But then you kind of lose the need for a character piece to make money. They can just go, fuck, we can make a lot more money really quick if we just make a big spectacle, which is kind of the formula they're sticking to. Because they think if they change it's too drastic. But TV, because of the way it's developed, they can put money into there. Because TV is more character development in a certain space. Breaking Bad's probably made within a certain area of the state. You must make
Actually,
it here.
now you mentioned it, my dad actually told me this today. He was reading about it. Apparently, Breaking Bad was only filmed in New Mexico. It's because it was the cheapest place to film it in. Basically, like the tax or something they pay that was actually the lowest out of any other place in America. So that's the only reason they filmed there.
Make it there. This is what you've got. You can't go anywhere else. All right.
And what a good fucking setting for the show, though.
Focus completely on the characters, and it's more about the detail because you have every bit of time to put the detail in because you're not worrying about all this other bullshit of traveling, going anywhere. Because it's like going to work every day. In a way, you're used to it, and it's the same with these guys. It's the same with It's the same how like a crap actor in a soap opera can pull out the exact same performance, or a theatre actor can pull off the same performance because they're going to the same place.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with a drama like this. It's we're doing the same thing again, so I'm going to get it right because you know the character. Not, oh shit, we have to now sit in a coach for 10 hours, now we've got to pull off this performance. Oh, we ain't got time, there's too much going on in the fucking set. Oh shit, the performance was crap and the film story was confused. I wonder how that happened. You know, but because you've got this certain area to work in, you've got all these parameters, you've got kind of a constraint, which Hollywood doesn't really have that anymore. But
Well,
then
The Room did.
the room had a constraint itself, Tommy Wiseau's brain.
Well, the original cut of that film was 3 hours. I wish he'd released the
my
director's
God.
cut.
Oh man, extended version. Yeah.
Hours. Sorry, I
He
think
probably says "Hi, doggy" more times.
that would be glorious.
And laughs more times.
Oh, but actually, one more thing. Talking about television, they are trying to get. I don't agree with it, but they're trying to get a Rambo television series going, and they're trying to get Sly Stallone to do it. And I think Hollywood's trying to, get in with the television crowd a bit and be like, oh,
Well,
if they like television
Sony
so much.
are Hollywood, and they're already in there. But I think that probably won't happen because he makes too many films on the side. It wouldn't. That can't be plausible.
Rambo. I don't know, man.
A lot of actors in Hollywood are clearly understanding this, and a lot of actors are knowing that they need to go to TV first, because that's where they kind of are able to refine their abilities more than anything. Like a lot of them, like a lot of actors and actresses are coming from TV first in a way now, in a drama and whatnot. So it could happen. There could be a reverse with the stars going to do it. Well, it does happen with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Sean Bean and that.
Sean Bean is a fucking Sean Bean. I don't watch Game of Thrones, but I might one day and just like find and just sit there in hope of him dying. I know it's not cruel, but you feel ashamed if he doesn't die in the film.
Well, again with Steve Buscemi, I know you're currently just starting
I was
Boardwalk Empire. You got a big Hollywood actor in television there as well.
Yeah, Michael Shannon's in that. It's
Michael Shannon. Yeah,
it's fucking massive actors who are in this.
Gandolfini, he was in television.
So yeah,
Gandolfini from when he was around, he was the TV guy as well. It does.
You got what was Boardwalk Empire? Martin Scorsese was doing some episodes of that, wasn't it?
Like the first episode of that adaptation of House of Cards for Netflix was directed by David Fincher, and
there you go.
Produced it. It is very much there. There's this strange sort of change going on. We're in the middle of it, so it's interesting to keep track of it.
And funny enough, Steven Soderbergh wanted to make the final episode of Breaking Bad a 2-hour film, and Soderbergh was going to do it and release it in cinemas for a week only. But obviously that didn't end up happening. But that would have been interesting as well.
And
these big filmmakers doing episodes.
Probably the TV studio was upset about it, or Netflix, or someone had an argument. But that seems to be the approach. Like even like a show like Mad Men is basically made in a couple of buildings and a few streets. That's pretty much where it's made, almost entirely. And they're able to use a lot of sets and studio sets again, which they don't use in Hollywood because they need on location a lot, which they can do in these shows, which is why Breaking Bad's probably in New Mexico because of the constant daylight. Practically, it's almost always fucking sunny and very predictable weather. It's all about locationing in TV shows now, and they're quite smart with it. But yeah, it's crazy.
They love their meth.
They do. Well, I'll end it there on They Love Their Meth.